Have you ever stopped to think about how we construct our reality? It might be simpler than you think. A lot of the time, we just start with the most basic shapes and build entire universes from there. So in this explainer, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to build a world, piece by piece, starting with the very first block. Just take a look at this sunrise. It's an image built from nothing more than a bunch of colored squares. It's a really simple idea, but it's also incredibly powerful, right? It means that with the most fundamental building blocks, we can represent and even create pretty much anything.
So that's our whole journey today. We're going to start with that single block and build a miniature world step by step and see if maybe, just maybe, it helps us understand the bigger one that we all live in a little better.
All right, so where does any civilization even begin? Well, it begins with a place to live, a foundation for everything that comes next. It begins with a home. This right here, this is the first, most fundamental thing we ever build. We create shelter to protect us from the elements. Just a roof over our heads, it becomes the center of our personal world, really, the starting point of our whole story.
And here, you can see this fascinating contrast. On one side, you've got a simple little beach hut, something shaped by leisure and the ocean. But on the other, a dense city townhouse built straight up to pack more life into way less space. It really shows you just how much our environment dictates the shape of our homes.
And that variety keeps going when you look at different lifestyles. We've got the classic suburban home, a picture of family life that's familiar to so many of us. And then, right next to it, a modern barn conversion. It shows how we can adapt old things for completely new ways of living. Each building, in its own way, reflects a different kind of dream.
Okay, so a collection of houses. That's just a neighborhood, right? It's not a community. Not yet. So what's the next piece we need to add to the puzzle? What's the glue that holds all these individual homes together? Well, the answer is this. We build places to gather. We create spaces for shared beliefs, like a church, and for shared passions, like a football stadium. It's in these kinds of communal spaces that we stop being just a bunch of neighbors and start actually becoming a community. Okay, so we have our homes, we have our community hubs, but for a civilization to really, truly thrive, it's got to be connected. It needs arteries, to pump life from one place to another. And that connection, it often starts with something that looks a lot like this: an engine, a locomotive. It's the heart of the system, really, the raw power that makes it possible to move across huge distances. And once that engine is running, we can start moving the most important cargo there is: people. This passenger train, it represents families being brought together, workers getting to new opportunities, and new ideas spreading from one town to the next. But of course, to build all those towns, you need materials. And so these very same networks become the backbone of industry, moving all the raw goods and resources to wherever they're needed most. This is exactly how a civilization grows. But these arteries are also used to project strength. Transportation networks have always been absolutely critical for moving troops and military gear, for maintaining order and defending borders. So yeah, connection and control often go hand in hand. From here, the scale of our ambition just expands dramatically. We're no longer just thinking about connecting cities on a map. We're thinking about connecting the entire map itself. Which brings us to our modern, globalized world, perfectly symbolized by this container ship. It's basically a floating warehouse, carrying the products of one continent all the way to another. Our world isn't just connected anymore. It's all packed together in a series of giant boxes. But we humans, we don't just build for shelter or for connection. We build to make a statement. We build monuments to our own ambition, things that reach for the sky. The pyramid, for example, it wasn't built for a person's life. It was built for their eternity. It's a monument to faith, to power, and to an ambition so incredibly grand, it was trying to conquer death itself. And then you have the modern equivalent, the skyscraper. This isn't built for the afterlife at all. It's built to command the here and now. It's a monument to commerce and finance, a symbol of power that's concentrated not in some ancient tomb, but in boardrooms high above the city. This slide just breaks down that shift perfectly, doesn't it? The ancient world built monuments to the gods, and it was all driven by faith and this focus on eternity. But the modern world, it builds monuments to markets, driven by finance and a focus on commerce.
The scale can feel pretty similar, but the motivation behind it all is worlds apart.
And we have to be honest and acknowledge a darker side to this ambition. Because sometimes our greatest creative and engineering achievements are poured into making tools of immense destruction. This railway gun is a monument in its own right, a monument to conflict, and to our ambition to dominate one another.
So, we've built homes, communities, networks, monuments. We've watched a whole world take shape from just a single block. And all this brings us to a final, more personal thought.
We have to remember that everything that we build can also be unbuilt. This toppled obelisk, it's a quiet little reminder that empires fall, cities crumble, and even the grandest monuments we create eventually return to the earth. Creation is temporary.
And that brings us right back to the beginning, back to the humble block, the little atom of all creation. Because think about it, the same pieces that can build a home can also build a weapon. The same human drive that builds a temple can also build a cold tower of commerce. The blocks are in all of our hands. So the real question is, what will you choose to build with them?